Hi, I'm Jeff Foxworthy, and welcome to Gamekeeper Podcast. If you want to learn more about farming for wildlife and habitat management, then, buddy, you are in the right place. Join the Gamekeeper crew direct from Mossy Oak Land Enhancement Studio as they discuss the latest wildlife and habitat management practices, news, and, of course, hunting. There's no telling what you'll learn, but I'm going to tell you, I bet it's interesting. Enjoy.
We're live in 3, 2, 1 without Mac.
All right, everybody, welcome to West Point, Mississippi. It's a beautiful November day.
It is beautiful out there. We've actually got a little bit of fall color in the trees.
It's really spectacular.
Yeah. We just don't have much of that, so it's good to see.
No, we were flying that drone yesterday, and the colors were just incredible.
Mm-hmm. You sound a little stopped up. You've been in the bag working on the kitchen remodel?
What? No, I hadn't been. I walked through there, so maybe that's where I picked it up. But everybody I know now.
Everybody's kind of.
Yeah, including me.
Yeah. Dudley, you sound like you definitely have it.
Mm-hmm.
But look, today we're going to have a lot of fun.
Always.
So later on, we've got Mr. Bill Gibson will be here with us, and we're going to call David Westmoreland, and we're going to talk about blood trailing.
Yep, after the shot, what's going on.
Yeah, so it's a lot to talk about.
It is. Recovery, is huge, obviously. And, everybody wants to put a great shot on whatever they're hunting and have a quick, clean recovery. We talked about it. We always talk about it in the processing vein of things. We talked about it last week and talking about passing it on with your kids, wanting to make those good shots. So recovery is a big part of it.
Yeah, it is. So we got some things we didn't do last week. I want to hit on blood on the biologic.
You got a pretty long list today.
It's incredible.
You owe me about 5 Ask Dudleys.
Yeah, I was hoping I think we'll get to an Ask Dudley
We'll get to an Ask Dudley today.
Finally.
Yep. So
your fans will be happy.
And Lenny, I wanted to ask you.
Is it your only fans?
Only? I think I get that.
Yeah. So look, Lanny, the other day I heard you come in the back door and you were all excited. You'd found something on the side of the road. And that seems to make you more excited than anything else.
I mean, everybody loves
you find ratchet straps. You find...
Well, there's a set of railroad tracks here in West Point that's kind of bumpy. And if you pay attention on the side of that, I've been going down this highway many, many years. You find a lot of, good things, a lot of Gamekeeper tools, from bungee cords to binder straps.
This was like an aluminum pole that extends like 15 feet.
Yeah. It was a pool skimmer pole.
and he came into the office. He was so proud of it. Were you a dumpster diver in your last life?
I hate to see good things go away, especially good tools.
Well, we'll keep us surprised as you find stuff. Let us know about it. I was just going to move on to blood on the biologic. There's so much going on right now. We can't even mention it all.
Yeah.
But I had a few folks I wanted to call a little attention to. There's a guy in upstate New York in the Adirondacks that killed a 20-point.
Buck.
A giant buck. He's wearing full bottom land. I saw the picture.
20-point.
It was just a beautiful big
Is it a typical deer? Non-typical?
Wide? It was very
heavy,
typical
skinny?
with a bunch of kickers.
But
he had a great story.
Sticker points.
Stickers. Kickers, stickers, what have
you.
Is
it mainframe 8, mainframe 10? He hadn't showed me this.
No, I hadn't showed it, but I will show you afterwards. But his name is Colt Russell, and I wanted to give him a shout out for, this guy's way up there in those Adirondacks. It's a really cool picture and a cool story. Then Jason Cook, we had Jason on our podcast. He's the guy that got attacked by that cat in South Florida, if y'all remember when he was turkey hunting. He killed a giant mule deer in Mexico.
I want to go to Mexico.
I mean, it's huge.
That's awesome.
Clay Warden, who a friend of ours from Florida, we have turkey hunted with him some. He just got back from the Frank Church Wilderness area in Idaho and killed a great big mule deer.
I want to go up there in that Frank Church area.
Yeah, he said they flew in, and it was, it took 15 minutes to fly in, landed on a little remote strip, but it was the weather turned on them. They had to drive out, and it took 5 hours to drive out.
Good grief.
Yeah, that was a long time. So moving on. So Grayson Garner over in Georgia, Bo killed a great big deer in some biologic clover plus. I mean, a really nice deer.
Glenn Garner's son?
That's correct. Laura Tinsley, Brooke Tinsley's wife.
I remember seeing that.
Killed her first deer on their island.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, in some biologic, I might add.
She's got a hog under the belt and a deer under the belt so far.
Yeah, a little girl from the Columbus area over there named Jade Fortner killed a 8-point. I don't think it was her first deer, but she's a young girl and she killed it. I was excited to see that for her. Yeah. My nephew Hudson Spigner killed a
Spigner?
doe.
Do you have a cousin named Spigner?
Spigner killed a doe this weekend. That's his second, so he's all excited. Callie Grubbs, one of the guys that won one of our Bertucci watches, sent a picture where he killed a really nice deer in Missouri in a beautiful, I don't know what's prettier, the deer or the biologic plot he killed it in.
Did he have his watch on?
I'm sure he did. I'm sure he loved his watch. So, and Dudley, you raised your hand. What do you got?
Ken Ivy's daughter, Day, killed a nice buck.
She sure did.
She is a really good outdoors woman.
Huntress.
Been taught well.
Tommy T's little boy killed his first deer too, I believe. I think he calls him Gunny T.
How about that?
CJ Workman up in Indiana. CJ's dad is a pro staffer.
Yeah.
Killed a big old doe in the snow. It was a beautiful picture. I saw it on Facebook.
I love seeing all these young people shooting deer.
Yeah.
Putting meat in the freezer.
Yeah, that's great. It goes right along with last week's podcast.
It does. So passing it on, baby.
And I'm calling a future Blood on the Biologic. Me and little Dud are going this weekend.
Oh, nice.
There you go.
Put some money on the table.
All right, you taking?
Are you going to the farm?
Yep.
Going to the
hadn't been yet
to the throw and mow patch.
Going to the throw and mow patch.
Brassicas.
Yeah,
that's going to be a tasty one.
Yeah. Well, we wish you luck.
Hopefully, it works out.
Little Dudley, get him on the scoreboard. All right, Richie, have you got a commercial for us?
Well, one thing I would like to hit on is those Princeton Tech lights.
Oh, yeah, the Gamekeeper lights.
Me and Richie used those a lot gator hunting this summer.
They came in handy.
Yes, they did.
So did y'all like the ones that the headlamps that have the strap that goes on your forehead or the handheld?
Both.
We use both.
Yeah, we use both.
Yeah, so that handheld, it only takes like 4 batteries. And it's amazing how broad it is.
They're great. No doubt about it.
Yep.
We use them a bunch.
My headlamp, I've been using all bow season. I took it backpacking this weekend. Still going strong. It's got blue, green, and red, and then it has a high and a low. And the high will, I mean, it's like your truck high beams. It's amazing.
I'm glad you brought that up, Dudley. Let's talk about headlamp etiquette. And I'd like to talk to Mr. Cole specifically about headlamp etiquette. Yeah. You know, they have different settings on them so you won't blind your buddies the whole time. We need to get you, be sure you know how to turn on that red filter there, buddy.
So Lanny's referring to, from time to time, we're putting out duck decoys, and Lanny will ask a question, and I'll turn around
instead of looking down to talk.
Yeah, I think that's what got me decoy upside of the head when my ear got busted.
That was in daylight.
Yeah,
it was. You threw a decoy at me first.
Well, so what is the red filter? Do certain critters not be able to see that?
It's just not as it's just easier on the eyes. I'm seriously bringing it up because that's what the red filter's for. When I'm looking at you, I can actually see instead of the high beams in the eyes, and I don't think it's as distressful to wildlife. It's more of a calming.
Yeah, I think some folks use a green filter. You know, in states where you can spotlight coyotes and things like that, where it's legal. Or pigs. Sometimes they'll put a green filter or a red filter, depending on the animal.
Right.
And it doesn't bother them as much.
But common courtesy is to definitely use the red filter when you're talking to somebody with a headlamp on.
Well, I'll start doing that.
That's good.
Or look down.
Or just turn it off.
Yeah. Well, you're asking a lot there. You know, there's a lot going on. So,
hey, but those Princeton Tech products are great products.
They are.
They really are.
And they've got a Gamekeeper edition. So you can go to PrincetonTech.com and see what they've got. And some of the stores that are selling our Gamekeeper products have the Princeton Tech lights. Really good gear. Thank you, Richie, for setting that up. So one thing I also wanted to point out, we hadn't done this in a couple of podcasts, but we look at all the reviews that come in, and there was a guy that Cypress T Ranch was the name he put on there, but he had a really nice review that talked about how his family loves being the Gamekeeper lifestyle, and he listens to the podcast. It was just a really good review, and it helps him get through the hustle and bustle of the daily life. So Cypress T Ranch, we've got a Bertucci watch for you. And we've also got some other gear. Richie we've got some new Gamekeeper shirts.
Oh, man, T-shirts.
Yeah, so we're going to start these reviews that come in. We're going to start sending a long sleeve and short sleeve Gamekeeper shirts to them. Lanny, you just got these made, just got them in. You're wearing
got one on right now.
They're in a bunch of different colors.
Yeah, a bunch of different colors.
Yeah.
They're great.
So they're really nice. So Cypress Tea, I tell you what, instead of a Bertucci watch, Richie handed me this note for a prize for you, and I can't hardly. Did he win a mammogram? What?
I believe that'd be a mammoth cooler.
Mammoth cooler. Okay, all right. So Cypress Tea, you're
Same
getting
thing, just spelled different.
Cypress Tea, you're getting a mammoth cooler there instead of
Man, that's an awesome gift.
Yeah, it is.
It is an
We
awesome
appreciate the reviews. I'm just trying to get people to give us some reviews. And look, last but not least, would you please share a podcast with some folks that you know that might enjoy listening to it? So we need to reach more people. That's what we're trying to do here. So if you don't mind, I'd appreciate that. We would appreciate that.
Do it.
So, Lanny.
Yep.
Looking across the room, Richie ready with the horns. Get your lips ready there, Richie.
He's often a guest. He's not even a guest. He is
He's family.
He is. On top of that, he is the man when it comes to dogs. So I don't think he needs any introduction.
You know, it's like having Sheriff Buford T. Justice sitting in here with us. And but Bill Gibson, we're so pleased to have you today. We want to talk about blood trails, and eventually this conversation is going to go to blood dogs, and that's where we really want to get. But you're a big deer hunter, so you're going to have some input into this conversation as well.
Yeah, but I'm a doe hunter.
Yeah, me and Mr. Bill on the same page on them doe meets.
I've killed so many bucks in my life that I've kind of specialized in does these days.
And hogs. Now, I know you love to shoot
hogs.
hogs.
I like to.
Only trophy does, though.
Yeah, big ones.
Yeah, full grown.
He is a big fan of sausage.
Well, I can see that. You know, he looks like somebody. That
I am too.
So look, let's start this conversation. Richie, I want to ask you, do we need to pull his mic down? It just seems a little far from him.
I believe we're good, Bobby.
Okay. All right. Well, all right. So we'll pick this back up.
Stay in your lane, Bob.
Yeah. All right.
Don't
all right.
coach the coach.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So, guys, let's start off talking about how important being able to blood trail is. And so, whether you're a gun hunter or obviously if you're bow hunting, is something that plays into the hunt sequence.
Yes.
But it's so important to be able to read that sign and know what you're dealing with, what you're looking at, and not messing it up.
Yep. 100%.
I'd like to tee this up by saying, making an ethical shot first
Highest priority.
is very important. And that can cut way back on your blood trailing. But it's going to happen sometime in somebody's life. Somebody's going to make a bad shot.
Look, and I'm going to tell you, a full-grown, mature whitetail, even if you place it in the boiler room, especially a big 200-pound buck, has got the ability to get out of there. You know, they all just don't fall. Yeah, and they all just don't fall stone dead.
Nope.
And Dudley, to your point, often when you see or shooting at a deer, the angle that's in your mind is maybe not even in the angle that he really is at.
In the heat of the moment, it's hard to keep your cool.
Yeah, it is. So I'm with you. First thing is make the best shot you can, and then what's the next thing? I know what I do next. That's what I was going to ask. Like after the shot, Bobby, what's the first thing you do?
Well, you get so worked up.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just pretend like we're talking about with a rifle, and you had a deer out there, and you're in a swampy situation, 200 yards, you take a shot and the deer's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So then you replay all this in your mind, what just went through, where where you were holding when you squeezed the trigger, and then in your mind, did he kick like a mule?
Tail up, tail down.
Right. Yeah,
where's the last place you saw him?
Go through all that and it's really important that you mark in your mind where he was.
That's what I was digging for.
Yeah, pick out if you see a little cedar tree where they jump the fence, just try to make little landmarks.
And I would encourage you to sit for a minute and pay particular attention from your stand. Most people are hunting in the elevated position. Maybe you're not, but because the ground looks different when you get on the ground and start walking over there.
There you go.
That's right.
Completely different.
Completely different. So be sure. I mean, he went in by that oak tree. Then you get down. Look for a minute. Be sure you know where that last spot is. Because that's, I think, to me, one of the most important places to start. And that's coming from a colorblind deer hunter, by the way.
You colorblind?
Yeah. Red, and just with red and browns.
My mother blessed me with red, green, and pastel colorblind.
Yeah. A lot of us are that way.
So I cannot blood trail any animal
I'm in the same boat. So that last departing where I saw him last is hugely important. Now, lung blood is a little bit different. I can see it a lot better, but it's tough.
Yeah. Well, that brings up a good point. So when you walk up there and you find blood, you can tell a lot by that first look at the blood that you got. And so bright red blood.
Frothy. You want bright red, frothy blood. Lung blood.
Yep,
Lung
yep.
blood.
So then if you're seeing really dark blood, that's
Muscle
could be a
tissue.
sign of a heart or a liver shot.
Or it could be brisket, depending on, is it spraying? Is it dripping? Is it running down the leg? Are the limbs, rubbing against it? Is it coming off the body? There's a lot of stuff you can tell.
How if you do find blood, how high up on
it is,
on the vegetation it is.
Yep, side of a tree you might find some. You can sometimes you get a little turned around. You can see which direction that blood was going. That'll give you an indication which direction the deer is traveling in.
What we normally do, I get somebody that can see blood, and then we take a roll of plastic type tape and tie it to bushes as we go. So if we lose a blood trail, we can back up. And
Mark your
start
line,
over again.
100%.
It's just very helpful to have somebody else there and one person stay on the last blood,
Right.
and then not move until the next piece of blood is found.
And you move
Especially,
up, mark that, and then do the same thing over and over again.
And another thing is, look at the topography. Pull out your phone and your OnX, and usually you can see, maybe a saddle or a drainage or something,
A natural
and
line.
it can help you use deductive reasoning to kind of guess maybe which direction the deer may have gone if you don't know.
Yeah.
and the behavior of the deer afterwards. Bob, you hit on this a little bit, but after the shot, what does the deer do? Does it walk? Does it run? Is it hunched? Is the tail up? Is the tail down? There's a lot of indicators physiologically that they can give you too about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at, and again, for me, struggling like Mr. Bill, so hard to see blood, the tracks. They tell me a lot. What direction, how fast it was running, depending on how the animal exited the field or wherever it is, being able to see, and to your point, create a line in my mind on in what direction is the best place to look.
I've always, maybe I'm just strange, but I've always enjoyed blood trailing.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, it's solving a puzzle.
mystery.
It's
And-
suspenseful,
Yeah.
And I know y'all did it with your kids too. When they shot their first one, you just didn't run to the deer. You're like, oh, you shot it right here. Let's try to find this. And that is one of those great parts about it, is that recovery.
Yeah, and everybody will have a story about, hey, you need to look over here.
More over here.
I don't see it.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a good training for them, though.
It is a great training. It really
But let's face it, we like hunting food plots. We're food plot people. A lot of times there may be 10 or 15 deer in that corner of the field that you're shooting into, and you shoot. It's getting late.
mass chaos.
Light is diminishing, and then you just see 15 deer going in every direction, and you may not even know which direction the deer you shot at went.
Yeah.
It's important to try to replay it in your mind where your deer went and backtrack, before you even get out of the stand. But
100%.
sometimes you don't even know.
Yeah.
I've had that happen more than a couple times.
So before we jump on to dogs, though, I think one of the main questions that you're always going to go when you are trailing deer is,
Are you going to come back in the morning or not?
when do you back out? What are the indicators that tell you, hey, it's time for me to back out and come back in the morning? Every one of us has been in the woods. If you're in the woods at night with a Princeton light on your head, boom, and Onyx on your side, sorry,
Go ahead.
it is dark when there's no moon out in the woods, and a lot of the swampy areas that we hunt, lights reflecting everywhere, and it gets a little hard to tell what's going on. But I'd love to talk about, Bobby, when do you decide to back out and come in the next day?
There's scenarios sometimes where you may be going along and you bump the deer and you hear it get up and run. And that would be a scenario that would make me think very strongly about saying, okay, maybe we need to let him lay a little bit.
That's a huge indicator.
And come
for me
back
too.
and
Also knowing that the deer is probably still alive. I know this is tough to talk
Right. No,
about.
that's part of it. That's what we're talking
We
about.
want them to expire quickly, but it doesn't always happen that way.
Right.
And if you see it get up and run off, chances are it's got at least a couple more hours left in it. And you could look at the weather, see how cold it's going to be, and make a decision.
I've heard, if it's a paunch shot, if it's in the entrails, you need to let them lay. If it's in the liver, you need to push them. There's a bunch of different scenarios that you hear, but to me, it's all subjective to what the actual deer behavior is and how confident you feel in your shot. A lot of times you know exactly where you've hit them, and a lot of times you don't. So factoring all that in, and also considering obviously weather factors, wind factors. Is it going to be cold enough? Is it going to rain? To make that decision. But
coyotes too.
Coyotes
too.
Yeah, this is kind of my opinion. Everybody's entitled to them, but I kind of think leaving a deer until the next day is not necessarily the most ethical thing to do, because a coyote may get it. You're hunting for meat.
Yeah,
and
it's risky. And you don't sleep well at night either.
Right.
When at night.
We're good at setting our alarms to get up at 4 a.m. to go hunting. Set your alarm for 2 and go out there and look. The deer's probably expired by then.
Yeah.
And
if you jump them up, you give them a couple hours and go back.
Yeah. I mean, it might be, a big set of antlers that you just have to find, but there's meat attached to those antlers.
Oh, look.
And you owe it to the deer to get it before the coyotes get to it. That's my opinion.
I agree 1,000%. That's the whole reason I'm trailing. Those horns don't bleed.
Well, there's so many things that figure into that.
Sure.
I mean, we all have folks that we're real close to that have made decisions like that, and then end up making the right. I mean, they end up finding the deer the next morning.
Right.
So, I think a lot of that though is guys that have shot something that's got a lot of horn, and they don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
And they're thinking more about the antlers than they are anything else. So, and look, I'm gonna probably err in that direction.
You gonna push?
So we can agree to disagree.
I like antlers, and
right.
I mean that's one of the reasons I'm hunting.
Oh yeah.
And
hey, don't let Dudley lie. He likes antlers too.
So, I mean, there's just so many decisions, and I don't know that there is a right or wrong in some of this stuff. You just do the best you can.
It's so subjective to the time, the place, the shot, who you're with, where you are, what the weather is, everything else. But to Dudley's point, every effort has to be placed into recovery. This isn't a turn the page and go hunting again and forget about what you did. I can't, me personally, the next morning, I won't go hunting if I hadn't recovered because I want to go back and look. I've looked for a deer that I didn't recover for, days.
Yeah, looking for buzzards in the future is, and it's amazing how fast they can get on a critter. And if you're not there when they're circling, they'll be down on the ground, and then you won't know.
Yeah.
You might just walk up and flush them, if you're walking around. But Lanny, it's going to sound like a commercial, but that on the Onyx, you got that tracking feature.
So
if you have lost a deer, that's a great feature to let you know if you've covered some country.
No doubt about it.
And just where you've walked and see if there's any holes left.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, I shot at a mature 6-point. Big old dude. Big old forks. In the heat of the moment in a rut hunt last year. And I'm now determined that I may have hit a vine or something. But I used that Onyx and zigzagged for 6 hours in a drainage. Actually, it was a total of 6 hours, but it was 3 different drainages. And I watched the deer turn up into one of them, and I waited a while. And I thought it was a perfect shot. But I used that Onyx and tracked my location in that drainage. Like every 15 or 20 yards, I was zigzagging back and forth. And when I didn't find any blood or hair or deer in that one drainage, I went to a drainage on either side of it. And then I went across the road where he would have possibly crossed the road and checked that drainage and didn't find a thing. And I was in my mind content that I missed that deer.
After that
had
search.
I not had that, some type of tracking app like Onyx, I would have felt guilty that, maybe I hit it and lost it.
Yeah, and in the dark, it's easy to get off track.
Yeah, I grid. I've had to grid a lot. I call what he's doing grid. And I think that
that's right.
Search and recovery will be grid. And so you're creating accesses to work off of to be sure you cover everything. So yeah, Onyx is a hell of a tool to help you get that done, because you really can't get that done in the dark without some kind of assistance.
Sure. So. And I don't know if my next suggestion, I don't know if it's legal in every state, but if you've got a buddy that's got a drone.
Yeah, that's an interesting.
You can see a lot, and if you've got a deer out in a CRP field, for example, they'll show up like new money out there.
It's going to be interesting to see with this. With obviously we're living in the technology age, and it's affecting every part of our lives. What the states and the legislators will do with electronic assistance to recovery. Yeah, thermals. I mean, there's tools out there that you can really use to help. That's for sure.
Yeah. So last thing that I wanted to make sure that I commented on, I'm not saying this is the end of the conversation, but if your deer goes off your property, I think it's a great idea to call your neighbor and say, hey, look, here's
I'm glad you brought that up, Bobby, because that is a big thing. You need to, what is it? Ask for forgiveness or permission. You need to ask for permission on that one.
Let them know what's going on, and they may end up helping you find the deer.
Yeah. There's been some horror stories of folks that just took the liberty to cross those lines. So,
and it might be different. You may be really close to your neighbor and already have those things established.
Yeah, that's true. That's different. And I think there's a lot. We're speaking locally around here, but out west it's even a bigger deal. So.
Yeah. So after you've exhausted all these things that we're talking about, the next logical step is if you know somebody or have access to somebody that's got a dog.
It's a recovery dog. Amazing.
And also, even if you haven't exhausted it, if you've got a dog and need to work it, let it start from point A, before you go and leave your scent everywhere and mess,
Oh, it's fun to use it for recovery.
Yeah, because Dudley makes a great point, because oftentimes
you may watch the deer drop, but
yeah, teach your dog.
If you're trying to train a dog,
he'll help you out in the long run. That's for sure. That's what I did with Chief. Bill, you remember Chief, don't you?
Yeah. Even if you know where the deer went down, where the deer is, you can still take your dog and let it find the deer. Obviously, you know where it is. Let the dog find it. Get a little experience under his belt or her belt.
Yeah.
Before I had kids, I carried Chief with me everywhere, and so he was with every recovery for me. And just as a puppy, doing what y'all are saying, introducing him to recovering deer, I would even make him sit and stay and heel, and then I would, shoot a deer and go and find it. But he, starting him so young, it became part of what he loved to do. It was real natural for him. So, and I think, Bill, I think these labs are great for it. There's several breeds of other dogs that folks use, but it's an unbelievable tool. That's for sure.
Yeah, I've got a buddy, Scott, lives around Charleston, South Carolina. Whenever he's in a shooting house, he takes his dog with him, and he's got the dog trained to just sit there with him when he hunts.
I deer hunted a lot with my old lab Chief.
Did you?
Yeah. We were, big tract of land down there for a long time. I didn't have Hayden at the time, so.
I'll run something by you right quick. We had a guy bought a lab from us, and he shot and wounded a deer, and it ran off, or his buddy did. And he came and got him the next day in the rain and said, "Hey, think your dog can find my deer?" And he said, "I don't know, we try." Been raining 23 hours. And the scent trail is 23 hours old, obviously. The dog found it at 300 yards in just a few minutes. How he did it, I don't know. But the scent, some way, did not wash away.
And Bill, how mo better can a dog smell than us?
Oh, about 100 to 300,000 times better. All factory senses are much greater.
Yeah, that's 5 zeros.
So are they smelling the tracks of this deer? Or are they smelling just there's a dead deer over there?
Well, that's debatable because labs are air centers primarily, which means they smell. If they're downwind from a deer, obviously they're going to air scent it, but they also ground scent. And I think it just depends on the weather conditions and the whether or not it's raining, whether or not the wind's blowing to pull a scent, whether or not it's a swirling wind and the scent is swirling. There's just a lot of factors come into play.
And
when
then,
you turn the dog loose.
sometimes there, like I said earlier, there may be 10 or 15 deer out there when you shoot. How do you know that dog's going to find the deer, track the deer you shot at and not just.
Well, what you do is you hope. When you start, you know where you shot it, and you start right there. And I read that there's 40 different deer scents out there, so that when you're actually trailing a deer and he's on that one deer, he can differentiate between
They can
another
smell
deer
that.
cross the path or something and then stay on the correct path.
It makes you wonder if they can, with their smell, if they can sense the distress in the deer, maybe, or something.
That's what I read, but that's a different type tracking. Well, deer that's been wounded and is under a lot of stress puts out a scent through its hooves that goes into the ground.
That's
I think
different
dogs
from
can
an
track it.
uninjured.
That's different from an uninjured deer. So if an uninjured deer crosses that path, that dog can actually stay on that injured deer's path.
Yeah, 1 to 300,000 times is a number that we probably can't fathom. in
That's
our
exactly
minds.
right.
So they can sense things that we don't understand.
That's correct. And
It's fascinating.
and never will.
Yeah, just go to the kennel and then come home and see what your dog does. They're going to sniff
Licking your
every
legs.
square inch of you.
Mr. Bill, I know you're a lab guy, but what are some other breeds that
I would think just about any breed could be trained to be a tracker, as long as it has olfactory senses that it needs to be a tracker. Some dogs have superior noses, some have inferior noses. So if you start off with a known line of dogs that have good noses, I think any breed could be a tracker.
it makes a lot of sense? You see stuff on social media, people showing off their deer dog, and you do see a lot of different kinds of breeds.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of lab type dogs. I also see a lot of, like little dachshund looking dogs,
Yeah.
and
Wiener dogs.
German,
What
dogs with like a German name.
Yak. We had Yak Terriers. There was a big push around here.
Toxie had one.
Toxie
had a Yak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Daryl had a Yak.
remember hearing them talk about a guy that had a Yak Terrier that would trail elk.
Yeah, it was ferocious.
And I remember them telling the story about that. They turned the dog loose and the elk wasn't dead. And they looked up and this elk, a bull elk, is running across a meadow, and that Yak Terrier
Is on his
was
nose.
hanging from his nose. Hanging from his nose.
But out west, a lot of places you can't use a tracking dog. They don't allow it. So,
Interesting.
Where you and I hunted, I'm not going to name the state, but they
Right.
won't let you use a dog.
No
there to
tracking
track.
dog there.
Yeah, and I guess, from the game warden standpoint, just thinking out loud here, somebody could go shoot a deer at night and just put a dog on a leash and say, I just tracked the deer. I shot it earlier.
Sure. There's
Yeah.
no doubt
And
about
so, I can see where,
Yeah, not to mention with the thermals and everything else.
not trying to give anybody ideas.
Yeah, our game wardens, they have their hands full.
They got their hands full. They really
Yeah.
do.
Well, look, why don't we do this? Because we got a guy we're going to call. Mr. Bill trained his dog.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's get David Westmoreland on the phone. Lanny, I got a phone number here for him. Dudley, if you'd pass that to Lanny. And then Mr. Bill trained, his dog's name is Stik. Mr. Bill trained him.
Stik.
That is a great dog name.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Toxie Hayes with Mossy Oak. Hunting and fishing, gamekeeping, and taking care of the land with my family is my life. And I'll be honest with you, the one app that I'm on every day and use more than anything is OnX. It literally has changed my life. From property ownership to roads, everything to do with understanding the land better. I even use it to plot acreages all the time. Every function I could dream of. Use coupon code MossyOak to save 20% on your next OnX subscription. Trust me, you'll be so glad you did.
All right.
The interdigital glands. That's what
Yeah,
that's
that's it.
Yeah.
Hello.
David Westmoreland.
In the
Hey, man.
house. Boom. Our old buddy.
All right, David. We're so glad to have you on there. You pulled over on the side of the interstate. Are you safe? You're not driving, are you?
I'm working on that. I was down in a dip when you called a while ago, but I'm good now.
All right. Well, get out of the dip, get up on the side of the road and pull over now. So So look, let me just introduce David just a little bit. David, we've
Longtime friend.
Longtime friend. He is, and he may be. He's one of the best bow hunters I know of. I mean, he travels all over.
Yeah,
literally.
He's serious about it.
He's very serious, and he's a gamekeeper. He's been doing this a long time. He's really good, and but he called a few years ago, and he wanted to get a blood dog, and he'd heard so much about Mr. Bill and the kennels, and we went through all this, and he brought his dog down here and left him. And he got back what I think is correct me if I'm wrong, David, but you have your best friend in that truck with you right now somewhere.
Well, 100%, Bobby. I mean, my history. I lost my best friend in 16, so he's filled a big hole for me. With Stik. I mean, he literally goes everywhere I go. I mean, everywhere. So it's been a special deal, not just for the blood trailing, but just the companionship has been. I mean, as a dog owner, but you can't explain the connection you get with a good dog,
Yeah, hunter's best friend for life. That's the only way we can describe it.
It is.
Exactly right.
So, David, before we get off down in this topic, Lanny wanted me to ask you: have you been in any fights lately?
The odd thing, you say that the older I get, the fewer I get into. I don't know if the people are feeling sorry for me or I'm just stepping away from them, but I haven't been in one all week.
Well, it used to be we couldn't talk to you without you. You've been in some kind of altercation somewhere.
That's right.
Yeah, I've slowed down a bit, Bobby, in my older days.
Well, that's good. Well, look, we want to talk to you about your experiences with a dog and blood trailing, and your thoughts on that, and your experience with Mr. Bill at the kennels. If you could just kind of start there and talk a little bit.
Well, it's a huge subject, but I know when I started, my expectations were relatively low. I mean, I wanted a dog that I could have in camp that, would be tolerable by everybody. Nobody likes a obnoxious dog in camp. So when I took him to Bill the first time, the obedience and everything was kind of the priority and the blood trailing was a bonus. But, Bill did an unbelievable job. He went a little early. He was, he still had his baby teeth, and he was, I think, 5 months when we brought him in. But anyway, when he came back, he was incredibly obedient, and he's a dog that just wanted to do good. He wanted, if you could make him understand what you wanted, he wanted to do it. And Bill had worked with him some on tracking, and not so much blood trailing, but tracking and finding dead animals, with a piece of deer hide or whatever. And so not long after I got him home, I'm not big on shooting does really, but I couldn't wait to get out and kill something to see if, Stik could find it. And so I started shooting does. I shot the first doe, and I took him, and I had him on a leash, tight leash, and scared to death to lose him. And I was trying to show him the blood. I shoot the doe and, hit her perfect, and she didn't go 100 yards, and I knew right where she was laying, but I wanted him to follow the blood. Well, I was aggravated because he was just going back and forth all over, and he didn't care about the blood, but he had already winded the deer and wanted to go. But, me, I was wanting to track the blood. Well, anyway, it took us a few times like that for me to figure out how he hunted, and he hunts, he cross-checks, wind checks the track, not so much looking for, he's not a bloodhound. He's a wind checker, so I call him. And once I figured that out and give him a little more leash to run, and he would smoke a track like no tomorrow. It was unbelievable how fast and how good he got. But it took us, some time to figure out, how to do it, how to work him and work together. Because my whole deal, for 40 years, I've been trained to find every spot of blood you could. Well, he don't care about the blood. He's smelling the smell. So anyway, that's what it did. And I was lucky doing what I do that he got a lot of experience in a short amount of time. I think yesterday he found number 41.
Oh, that's
he's only 3 years old. And to me, that's pretty good. 41 deer to find in 3 years is really good. And he don't find them all, but I've learned too, typically when we don't find them, it never fails 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 weeks. Somebody will call me and say, "Hey, we got a picture of that deer. He's still alive."
Mm-hmm.
But if he's dead, he pretty much finds them all.
Wow.
So David, let me ask you this. So you run an archery camp and you have a lot of hunters coming in and out, and that dog's got to be finding that deer's do you try to tell people, let's just look, don't even go look for the deer. We're going to bring the dog every time. Does it mess him up if people have been walking down in the woods and whatnot?
100% it does. And I get frustrated with people, and it's not their fault because they just don't know, but they'll go out and look for 2 or 3 hours, and 3 or 4 guys setting everything up and disturbing everything. And then they call me. And, it's so important to get that dog a fresh opportunity on that track. The sooner the better. If you know you've made a marginal shot, most people know it. You call the dog then. You don't look for 2 or 3 hours or 2 or 3 days and then call the dog. It's just, it's setting the dog up to fail. If 3 or 4 guys can't find him, well then, the odds are the dog's going to struggle too to get on a fresh track where, like I said, if somebody calls me and I get there within 2 or 3 hours or so, 99% of the deer, we find them, if he's dead. So that's really, really important. And I have friends, I get aggravated. Call me when you know he's dead, because one of these days you're going to want Stik to find one that may be hard to find. Even if you see the deer fall, call me. We'll go out and find him. And he's a buddy. What better thing to go find a deer with your buddy? Yeah, that's
exactly right. Yeah.
And if you got called every time your buddy couldn't find one, you'd probably quit going.
Yeah, that's right. Good point.
So he's gotten. I've got a few neighbors and stuff that know when they smoke a deer, no matter what, they call us and we'll go over there and we find him and he's a part of the team. And every time he finds one, he gets better. Like that deer yesterday, he blew across the bean field, and the instant he got downwindowed, he was 150 yards from it. He turned on a dime, like a 90 degree, had a full run, and then turned and just blew to that deer. And I couldn't believe. I wish I'd had it on video. I had my phone in my freaking pocket, and I didn't video it, but that was a prime example of how he hunts. He wins them. He stun checks them and wins them. So it's been a cool deal.
So Dave, this is Lanny, by the way. It sounds like you don't work him on a lead. You let him free run.
Depends on the state. Some states you have to have him on a lead, and then others you don't. I use a GPS collar on him all the time because, one, you know exactly where he's at, and if he would happen to get loose from the lead or whatever, you can still find him. And then it was funny when he was a puppy, the first say 10 that he found, he'd bark when he found them.
That's what I was going to ask.
And I was like, yeah, I was like, perfect. I was like, he'd find one, he'd start barking. I'd be like, he's got him. And we'd go and he'd be tearing into him, and barking. And he quit doing that. Now he just wants to eat them.
He's hungry.
Yeah, you got to get on him pretty quick. He don't go after the cape or anything. Luckily, he goes after the hindquarters and the paunch area, but he'll have them picked clean. Like all the hair picked off of him if you don't get on him pretty quick. But that collar, exactly when he'll be ranging out there and, he'll go 110, 118, 135. And then next thing it says treat. He's not moving.
Right.
And you can go there and he's got it. He's on it.
Do you reward him with any kind of liver or any kind of entrails, or do you just love on him and tell him to do a good
believe
job?
it or but yeah, he gets the thrill out of this. He's just like a person. He gets so excited. When we get there, it's like he's trying to show us, look what I found, look what I found. But believe it or not, the little joker, he's like allergic to beef and red meat. So it took me a while to figure that out, but he don't do it all the time. But a lot of times if he eats it, he'll get sick that night, and I couldn't figure out what it was. So we got him on a salmon and rice diet, and he's golden. He don't have any trouble at all anymore. So not to say he don't get a meat stick now and then, but for the most part, he eats pretty clean, probably like we should eat more than likely, but he stayed in good shape. And and he's an athlete. He runs nonstop. So
maybe he's got that tick disease, alpha gal.
Good.
I don't know. Of all the things, I'd end up with an allergic dog. And I felt sorry for him there for a while. You could just tell he didn't feel good. And the vet told us about the salmon and rice, and we got him on that, and he's been golden ever since. So it's good. But it's been a pleasure. Like I said, I can't thank you guys enough, or Mr. Bill, for doing it, because he made him, gave him the foundation. And then, like I said, with the opportunities I had to get him on deer, he's been, in my opinion, everybody, it's like a kid. Everybody thinks their kid's the best, but he is really a pleasure to have and be around.
Well, I'm looking at Mr. Bill. He's over here beaming.
That's right.
With pride.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
He's primarily an air center.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that when you brought him back to get a little retriever training, and he blew past the dummy and got the baby deer about 100 yards away.
To be honest with you, I feel really bad because he's a retriever and I don't bird hunt. You guys know that. And I actually booked him on a pheasant hunt for Thanksgiving Day. I'm taking him to shoot some pheasants, and I really want to get him on some ducks, but I don't know which end of a duck quacks, so I'm going to have to go somewhere and get him on some ducks. 'Cause he's good. He knows the process and everything, but he needs, like finding the deer, he needs some experience with it, So he's retrieved a few geese and stuff that I've shot, but it's not the same as sitting in a blind,
Do you hunt with him? Like when you're deer hunting?
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was the cool part. He, in turkey season, he's really good at finding turkeys too, but I went out one morning and I thought, you know what, I'm going to take him and see if he'll sit still in the blind, and that sucker, we had a goblin bird. I'm not exaggerating a bit. He was 10 feet from the blind off to my right. And you guys know I only bow hunt, so this bird was spitting and drumming 10 feet, and Stik never moved a toe. He'd sit there and just tremble. Well, the second I shot, the bird finally come out to the decoy, and I shot. And the second I shot, that little dog flew through that window and was on that goblin. Wide open. So, and at first, it was good. I was like, well, shoot, I'm never going to lose one ever, because he gets on before they know what happened. But it's a problem if you got two guys and you're trying to kill two turkeys.
Well, what about that?
Because once that dog goes out, it's over. The hunt.
What about the arrow? Don't you have to worry about what if the arrow's stuck in the bird and he's
I worry about that some, but I luckily I shoot quite a few pounds and I haven't had one hang up in the bird yet, and that's why I wish I could get him. I need to work with him some and get him to stand until I tell him to go, so if there is an arrow, I can hold him, but like right now, there ain't no holding him in that blind. The minute that bow goes off,
to draw a bow.
I
don't think Copper would hold that.
Drumming.
Goose neither. He's going to get him. He thinks that's a pheasant.
Yeah, Mr. Bill calls that self-employed.
Yeah, that's right. It becomes self-employed.
Well, the other test was I went and hunted with a buddy. I don't know. I think maybe Bobby's met him, John Knox. But I went with him one morning to his spot, and he had a VS 360, one of them see-through blinds. And I was like, man, I don't know, John, if Stik will stand for that, or not. I don't know what he'll do. Because in the regular blind, like I'm hunting out, he can't really see him until he jumps out, But that day we had 4 jakes come in, and they were 10 yards in front of the blind. And that dog sat there and looked at him the whole time, and he never wiggled a toe. Just stood there and stared at him and shakes, He gets to trembling, but he don't.
He gets the fever.
Yeah.
He gets the fever. Even on deer, I take him up in an elevated blind. The only problem is he can't climb a ladder. So I got to carry him up there. So I carry him, and he'll just sit there and watch the deer. He won't break. He'll just sit there and watch them. And he's never offered to spook them or nothing. Even in the yard, if I let him out at night and there's deer there, I tell him one time, leave it. That's his little key. And he won't chase them. He'll just sit there and look at them. But you stick one of them now, it's a different different program. He's all over it.
My turn.
He sounds like a great dog.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he was when he was in training at the kennel, a great little dog.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Bill.
Yeah,
Oops, sorry, go ahead.
he's really, like he's just 3, well, a little over 3 now, but he's really gotten good, like good natured and just dead calm. I mean, he's just, you wouldn't even know he's there unless you know he's there,
No barking, no whining, no unnecessary
No
moving,
barking, no
nothing.
whining. The only frustrating part of him is he literally takes every step with me throughout the day. They've nicknamed him Shadow because no matter where I go, he's right off my heel, just nonstop. And like if you go through a door where you got to stop and let him come through, and he does that all day long. And I read the other day, you guys probably know, but like a dog average sleeps for like 16 or 18 hours a day or something. And Cindy, I told her, my wife, I said, he don't get that much sleep because he follows me all day long. He's up all day, from dark to dark. So I don't know when he catches up on his sleep, but he don't get the average sleep anyway.
Oh, that's good.
Well, Goose makes up for what he does. Yeah.
Yeah. And Copper, this morning I got here and I sent my wife a text at 7:19. Copper was sound asleep.
Snoring.
Yeah.
On the tree stand couch.
Yeah. So look, David, if you want to hang on here just a little while, I wanted to ask, and you might want to comment, but I wanted to ask Mr. Bill, how does a guy kind of train his own dog a little bit? Not trying to knock business out of your lap, but
if you're interested in, having one of your pooches, help your blood trail, what would be some good guidance?
Well, at our kennel initially, we start off with just basic obedience training.
Mm-hmm.
Heel, sit, stay, place, and hear, and get all that down. And instead of starting retrieving with dummies, we start with deer legs. So then we throw a deer leg out in the deep grass, and we use find it.
Mm-hmm.
And so he goes out, retrieves it, and brings it back. And then we graduate from there to placing deer legs in different places on the property and tell him find it. It's like a blind retrieve.
Mm-hmm.
And he finds all our deer legs and brings them back to us, delivers to hand. Then we move from that to straight line dragging deer hides. We soak them in water for about 5 minutes just so we know we get a scent. And then we drag them between us on a long rope. Put the deer hide in the middle and one of us on each end. The reason we do that, we don't want the dog tracking us. We want it to track the deer hide. And you're constantly losing little flakes of skin when you walk, when you move, when you're sitting here. And so they're falling on the ground, and the dog could easily track me instead of tracking a deer hide.
So you get your deer hide, and you have a rope or chain on either side of it.
50-foot rope.
Wow.
And drag it between us.
Significantly a lot.
That way we know that the dog is not tracking us, he's tracking the deer.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go from straight line to zigzag, where we weave in and out and, go a good distance. Start off short distance, back and forth, and might bring the deer hide almost back to us, maybe 50 yards to the left, 50 yards to the right, and let him track it around and come back. Of course, you got to keep the wind in your favor because they're air centers.
Mm-hmm.
And if the wind is blowing and the dog goes across that scent trail, he's going to go to the hide instead of tracking the hide.
I was going to tell you guys, I can't explain it. It's kind of I guess for lack of knowledge, a phenomenon to me, but Stik's always been pretty honest on a track. A lot of people ask, well, how does he know which deer that they're tracking? And I've had him run through a whole herd of deer and him stay on the wounded deer track for the most part. But I think they must release an endorphin or something when they're injured. It's like I've heard, police dogs will run through a whole crowd of people and get the criminal because the criminal releases a different sin or whatever because he knows he's wrong or whatever the case is. But Stik, I'm not saying he's 100% honest. If he jumps a buck fresh, especially a buck, they have more scent. He'll run it for a second, but he comes right back, and then he'll resume on the right track. And how they do it, is beyond me. But they know, and I'll tell you something else they know too. That's a mystery. Is typically when I get on a track, within a few minutes, I mean, literally a few minutes, I'll know whether we're going to find that deer or not. If we're not going to find it, it's just like he has no interest. He'll be all excited when the get-go, when we start, but then in a few minutes he loses interest and he's looking at, rabbits or squirrels or whatever else he can find, because he knows in some way, shape, or form that deer's not dead. And, we'll keep looking. A lot of times we'll keep looking. The hunter will expect, us to keep looking, and we will. But, I'll have a good feeling like, look, I don't think this deer's dead. And I think he knows it long before we do.
Typically, will he just go out and then come back to you and look at you?
Yeah, he doesn't range real far unless he's on that track. And that's the prime sign. When he goes out there 100, 150 yards and then comes right back, we're not going to find that deer typically.
Not good news.
But when he, we found one for the Drury's for, I'm drawing a blank on the brothers, the Lurk.
Jared.
Jared, yeah. We found his deer, I think it was last year or whatever, and we got out of the truck and Stik got away from me and blew out of there. And I was looking at my GPS and I was like, well, he's 250 yards out, and going. And I mean, we walked down there right where he took off from and found the blood again. And before we could figure out what to do, the GPS is saying treed, and he had that deer. I mean,
wow,
like instantly. And that was a track from the night before.
He might be Jared's best friend, too.
Yeah. So David.
I was reading an article about a technique that was developed in Germany. And this guy over there designed a set of shoes that you put the deer hooves on and walk to train a dog. But the deer hooves have to be off of a deer that's been wounded and run quite a ways, because that interdigital scent gland in the hooves deposits a stronger scent because the deer's under stress from being wounded. And you can have 40 deer run across that path, and their scent is not as strong as that one that's under stress and wounded. And,
it's got to be something like that, Bill. I mean, there's got to be something that they release that we don't know, but them dogs, they know.
It's beyond our understanding. I mean, it's the same. I assume it's the same reason that dogs can smell cancer on people and things like that. It's kind of a God thing, I guess.
They can smell a diabetic alert dog.
Yeah, with low blood sugar.
Yeah,
that's
low blood sugar.
So, David, is there like a Facebook group of blood dog handlers that you're a member of, or that you know of? So, if a guy's listening to this and he doesn't know somebody that has a blood dog and he wounds a deer, he got an option?
Yeah, there is in Missouri. Now, I don't know about I'm sure there's a national, but the Missouri Blood Trackers is a Facebook page that we use a lot at home, and there's a lot of really good guys on there, that do this. And then there's, it's just a place to go to get information on tracks and stuff. That's been, kind of an interesting part of it. Besides getting Stik to find them, is you get reports on all different kinds of shots and the outcome. Where they hit them and where they found them and what the broadhead did or the bullet did or whatever. And that Facebook page is a wealth of knowledge for that, And if you're in Sedalia, Missouri, and you hit a deer, you get on there and say, hey, I'm in Sedalia, Missouri. Does anybody in the area have a dog? And you'll get 40 replies, the guys that are in the area or will come. A lot of them are 2 or 3 hours away, but they'll come. Like me, if I got time, I don't care where it's at. I'm going, if I can go. I had a guy call today and wanted me to track one, but I didn't have time today. But it would have been the perfect dog or perfect deer for Stik. He was just in a big, thick patch, and the guy couldn't find him, but he knew he was dead,
Yeah, I was checking on Facebook earlier, and there's a Mississippi group, and it has 24,000 people that are members.
Yeah.
So, not everybody has social media, but everybody knows somebody that does, and they could at least look up that Facebook group for that particular state and find somebody, And a lot of these people, just like you, David, you're doing it because you enjoy it.
Right.
And so
Oh, yeah.
And they want the
a lot
dog
of
to
these
work.
people, you may, I'm sure people have different fees and, mileage and that's going to vary. But a lot of these people are doing it because they almost enjoy it more than the deer hunt itself.
Sure.
Well,
Playing
it's
with
just
their
like I
dogs.
said from the get go, it's a chance to go hang out with your buddy.
That's right.
And who don't want to do that? I mean,
Yeah, and help
whether you
somebody
find it
a
or not.
harvest. That's huge too.
yeah. You get a guy that goes from just sick to his stomach to tickled to death happy, like Jared that day. He, watched that deer all summer and then made a bad shot. He was just sick, and then we found it and
Stik
I mean,
saved
he
the
was-
day.
saved the day, and
He probably
and
got a
it's
picture
almost
of it
like-
next to it.
oh yeah, and them dogs, it's almost like they know they done it. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's like when they find one, when he finds one, he just like, look what I got. I got him.
I'm a hero.
I'm strutting. That's
It's
right.
mine.
It's mine. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Dave, we've enjoyed having you. It's good to hear your voice. We hadn't talked
Absolutely.
in a while. I miss you, but it is it's really good to hear your voice. You were part of our lives for a long time.
Shoot, Bill
Well,
still takes
same to
care of
you
his
guys.
dog. He's in town more
You
than
know-
you think he is.
Yeah,
I was in that industry for 30 years, Bobby, as you know, and there's a few things I missed about it. You all are one of them. So
Well,
I
thank
appreciate
David.
you thinking of me and reaching out. And if I can ever help you, I'm here for you.
yeah. Well, that's the same way.
Absolutely.
We really enjoy you, David. So look, thank you for being on. Tell Stik we said hello.
Absolutely.
I'll do it, man.
Hey, stop by the kennel sometime, visit a while.
You're his
I
favorite
will.
babysitter. Yeah, that's right.
I'll be there. We'll see you, boys.
All right,
Thanks,
Dave.
David.
Thanks, David.
All right, Dave. Well, Mr. Bill, have you got anything to add?
I want to add something about David.
Yeah, okay.
David loves this dog so much that when he goes out of town hunting, he drives. Doesn't he live in Missouri?
He does.
He drives from Missouri to West Point, Mississippi to drop him off with Bill.
He does. You're exactly right.
He drops his
Right.
dog off and his salmon and rice food. And I think he calls and checks on him, once every 3 hours?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Yeah. I remember the first time he left, he was calling me
Yeah,
to
come out
check
here
on
and
the
check
dog.
on my
I was like, David, look.
And then he laid him off on me.
Yeah.
Hey, there's nothing like that relationship. It really isn't.
You're right.
Hunter's best friend.
So circling back though, is there did we cover what a guy can do on his own to kind of help train his, if he's got a dog?
I think Bill, hit that pretty good.
Yeah, we pretty well covered what we do.
Okay, well, there was nothing else you wanted to add to it. I
No.
just like to think that guys listening to this could learn something that they could do themselves. But the best alternative would be to get in touch with you and have you help.
That's
train the
correct.
dog.
And we're glad to help people, if they want to leave the dog and let us work with it. Although it messes our training up for the day a lot of times, because then every dog in the kennel wants to follow the deer then instead of do his retrieve, his or her retrieve.
Yeah.
But
When I was a young kid, one of my first experiences, I had a bird dog named Jim, and I trained him. I was probably 14 years old, and I just love that dog so much. But he pointed a buck.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad was with me, and the dog pointed, and I was like so excited. He locked it, and there was a big brush pile, and I went and walked up to flush what I thought was going to be some quail, and a deer stood up. And from that point on,
Your life was changed forever.
I wanted to deer hunt from that point on. But
Jim showed you the way.
it's interesting how dogs react to the scent of a deer.
It really
it is. It really is. And I guess you can run different type tests on a dog to determine exactly what influences the dog more. Ground scent, air scent, a wounded animal scent. But I had never heard of interdigital scent gland until I started reading a little article. Well, actually, a guy contacted you, John Phillips in Alabama, and then he contacted me. And he was telling me all about it, and I talked to him about how we do it. I think he wrote an article on it.
Probably. He writes a lot of articles.
Yeah, he tends to do that.
But
Well, if you find out any more about that, maybe we can revisit this at some point.
there's some books out there on it.
Yeah.
And,
And the great, of course, I'm a lab guy. Obviously.
too.
Hey, you are. But David's got a great scenario where he gets to do it a lot. That dog associates, that success and the praise that you give him. So I would even say he could probably learn to ground trail a little bit, although he's predisposed to, air scenting.
Well, labs are more into air scent than they are ground scent because they're primarily used for duck hunting and upland. And obviously, if you shoot a bird out 40 yards and go straight down, there's not going to be a lot of ground scent. It's all going to be air scent.
Didn't you say even on birds, though, they can even smell the gunpowder?
Oh, yeah. I'll give you an example. We rabbit hunted with ferrets in Northern Ireland.
With ferrets?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the rabbits over there live underground in tunnels. And so you put a little beeper collar on a ferret, or 2 or 3, and you put them in the hole, and then you got a pipe-looking deal, and you walk along, keeping up with where your ferrets are going. Well, when they get close to a rabbit, the rabbit comes screaming out of the hole. And somebody 100 yards down may shoot the rabbit, and the grass is this high. So the dog cannot see the rabbit. All he hears is the gunshot. So you send him down the line. You might have 12, 24 people in a line with shotguns, and he'll go down until he hits the powder trail from the shotgun, turn and go pick the rabbit by using the powder trail.
The powder trail that's going from the end of the barrel to the rabbit. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
How do you get your ferrets back?
Yeah.
You blow a whistle. And they come out of the hole.
I'm picturing Mr. Bill.
I gotta do this.
I'm picturing Mr. Bill with some kind of pouch and some ferrets sticking their heads
they blow
out
that
of it.
little whistle and they come get in a cage. But I mean, that's quite a deal to rabbit hunt with ferrets.
Yeah, no, I've never heard of that.
Richard, can you get on the internet while we're thinking about this and fact check on that? Well, we could there, but.
And see if you can line us up a hunt.
That's an interesting story. So do we have anything else to add to the blood trail before we wrap up and do a Ask Dudley?
I think we covered it.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I think we talked about, the high points of it for sure. Pay attention to what's going on, try to make a clean, ethical shot. Pay a lot of attention to how that animal reacts after the shot, what he does. Obviously, the last place of sight. And then if you can't, if you're reluctant, if you're not confident in your trailing ability, go find a friend, go find somebody with a dog that can help you get it done, make the best decision. Because like Dudley said, the last thing we want to do is leave something in the woods.
Yeah, there's no point in me asking what did we learn because you just covered it all right there. Well, that's a good recap for sure.
Thank you there, Bob.
Good job,
paying
Laney.
attention, Laney. That's
I do
good.
pay attention every now and then.
That's good. Well, Mr. Bill, stay right where you are. Don't leave us now. And Dudley, why don't you do it? You got an Ask Dudley?
I sure do. Scott didn't say exactly where he was from, but near the James River in Virginia. And so Scott said, "Hey, Dudley, so I'm not really wanting the trees I'm getting from y'all to look like an oak plantation. I want them to look like an actual forest someday, more of a timber and wildlife thing, not just a wildlife thing. What kind of spacing do you recommend? Is there anything else I should do, like pruning or thinning? Thanks." Really good question, Scott, and that's something I'm interested in. Folks call in all the time and ask specific questions. The first thing I ask people is, what are your goals? But normally our folks will space their trees really wide. They're trying to grow a lot of acorns or fruits. But if you want your land or an area of your land to look like a forest someday, and I'm picturing
like a natural regen forest,
right? Like like you go to a refuge or a national forest that's not virgin timber, but really old,
mixed
tall
species,
tall, straight trees with good timber quality. Mm-hmm. They don't have a lot of defects from branching. You've got to grow them closer together. And one of the things about oaks is they're not like a pine tree. They don't compete well with each other. So if you plant a whole lot of oaks and space them close together, you're not going to end up with timber quality. Mm-hmm. You're going to end up with a bunch of knots and defects. So you need different species mixed in with your oaks. So you can space your oaks, 25 or 35 feet apart. Baby them for 3 or 4 years, so still do the tree tubes, do the weed control, full sun, fertilization. and you're kind of giving them an advantage. And then about 3 or 4 years later, you can just let the site go, let natural regeneration take place. You'll get, maybe some ash, some elm, hickory, gums, things like that to compete with the oaks. And it helps the oaks to self-prune. And you end up with a really beautiful forest someday, something where you think a bunch of turkeys are going to be hanging out in the spring.
That's what we like.
And it works. You just, you have to manage your expectations. Those trees aren't going to make acorns in their 6th year because they're having to compete with a lot of other trees, and they're going to grow vegetatively and straight up instead of out. And so, but that's how you do it, and it works.
I remember maybe it was a couple of years ago, you were talking about people planting cottonwoods next to oak trees.
Trainer trees.
Trainer trees. To
Some
make
people
them
call
grow
them
up
pusher
faster.
trees. Yep.
So it actually invigorates the growth in the tree up.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And there's some publications out there you can look for. Guy last name Burkhart did a lot of work on it 15, 20 years ago. The trainer tree concept.
Trainer trees.
And it works. They even ranked the trainer trees by species. Like if you're trying to grow quality cherry bark red oaks here in the South, the best trainer tree is a sweet gum. And there's a lot of others that were close second and thirds, but it's out there,
Well, you'll get a sweet gum if you want. If you
Around
want one,
here,
you
you
can get a
will,
sweet
yeah.
gum.
Whether
Yeah,
you want them or not.
exactly
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. Thank you, Dudley.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Always good.
It is. We hadn't had an Ask Dudley in a couple of weeks.
No, and that's my fault.
No,
We've
it's
been-
okay.
We've been going long.
We've had a lot to talk about. It's been deer season, man.
Yeah. It's one of our favorite times of the year for sure.
No doubt.
So look, we've got some new gamekeepers that have been added to the family.
Yeah,
Laddie.
the
Why don't
family
you-
has been expanded this week kind of rapidly in the last couple of days.
Yeah.
Last week we were talking about, passing on. We got a couple new Mossy Oak family members that we got to talk about. Our very own, y'all noticed that Mac was not on the air this week. So Mac is just getting out of labor and delivery with Maddie Francis Thatcher. So
Yeah.
we'd like to welcome her in the house.
What a beautiful young little baby.
Beautiful.
we
baby.
were talking about that. Most babies, their face is squished or something like that, and then a week
beautiful.
later they're beautiful. Of course, most moms say they're beautiful, but to me, I'm like, that maybe looks kind of like an alien.
Yeah.
That was the most beautiful. That's the most beautiful little baby I've
She's
seen.
beautiful. There's no doubt about it. So we're real proud for Mac and for Mackenzie on their new arrival. And as of this morning, our own David Hawley and Byrne Hawley had James Sanford Hawley, and they're calling him Jack. So got a
That's
picture of
awesome.
him right on the screen too. A couple new little gamekeepers coming in the fold. Super excited about that. We love babies around here.
We sure do.
Well, it's so exciting, and
It is.
everybody just it's a time in your life when you're just like, it's
Like
it's so
Toxie says,
special.
you realize why you're here.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, you do. That is so
Shout out to them.
happy for them. Do we know what Mac and them are going to call the little baby? Do we know? Because I'd heard a rumor, Margaret.
Margaret, maybe.
Margaret Thatcher. I
don't
doubt
know.
it.
Okay. All right. Well,
You're
just had to ask.
hilarious, though.
All right, Richie, I'm looking at you. Is there any unfinished business we need to wrap up or do?
No, sir. I believe you hit all the points there, Bobby.
Okay.
There you go. He's
Well,
good at
how is Caledonia doing with their football team?
We do have the third round of the playoffs coming up tomorrow night.
No, man.
So it's a
Are
big
you-
time there in the Caledonia.
Are you going to be announcing?
I will be. It's
What
First-
station do we need to tune into? To listen to that?
it's Caledonia doesn't have its own radio broadcast via the airwaves, but there's a
gotta be at the
link.
game.
There is a link actually. You can listen to an app, so I can
We'll have
get you
to tune
that.
into that.
Yeah, get Dudley that. That's all right. All right. Well, this has been a lot of fun, Mr. Bill. We appreciate you being here.
Always.
Yeah, you look
I
great.
appreciate the invite.
Oh, yes, sir. What you got KC doing down there?
I don't know. He's probably asleep. Something like that. No, he's probably working dogs this afternoon.
Probably.
Probably.
I hope.
Maybe. Yeah, that's right.
Well, good. Well, I think we have covered everything. Y'all leave us a review. Please watch the TV show on Tuesday nights. And
Let us know. Comments, questions, ask Dudley. Hit us up.
yeah, and please share our podcast with your friends. We would appreciate that. So why don't you say goodbye, Dudley?
Goodbye, Dudley.
Get us out of here, Richie.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Gamekeeper Podcast, and be sure to tune in again. Subscribe to Gamekeeper Farming for Wildlife magazine, and don't miss the Mossy Oak Properties Fistful of Dirt podcast with my good buddy, Ronnie Cuz Strickland.